Hey, I'm going to put this video out, probably going to catch a lot of flack for it, but, and I'm actually going to say a couple things here that are very politically incorrect. This Nathan Bedford Forrest, it's a bunch of Yankee lies about this guy. First off, he never was a founder of the Ku Klux Klan. He never was, I don't think he was ever in it, for crying out loud. He died in 1877, not that many years after the war between the states was over with. He's really best remembered as a great tactician. He studied today in military circles. He never had any formal military training, but he was a genius, man. This guy, he really was a genius. If they measured his IQ back then, it would have been over 140. I'm probably going to get into some IQ stuff here too, and race and all that type of stuff, because you know, a lot of things I think are big scams, and just the way it is. This is a scam that's going on today, that they're telling you that this guy was evil. He was just somebody that was fighting for his country, which was, the state of Tennessee basically was the country, for economic freedom. And when the Ku Klux Klan was originally formed up, it was about fighting the Reconstructionists coming from the North, who were just raping and pillaging everything of any kind of material value in the South. It wasn't even over racial stuff. Where this guy's reputation came into being, I'm talking about Bedford Forrest, or they call him Old Bed or Devil Bed, the Wizard of the Saddle. That's another thing, because this had to do with his military side. Wizard of the Saddle has nothing to do with Wizard of the Klan or something. So, that's another thing, I guess, when you're using the same word. It's almost like when you have Teddy Roosevelt is the president. Teddy Roosevelt was not related to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They both had the same last name. Sometimes when people see a word, they make an association where there's no association. But I got to cut right to the chase with some of this stuff. Well, first off, this is a book that I got off of Google that has these old books in there. This is Ku Klux Klan 1865 to 1877. Where it was formed, when it was formed, it was a meeting of 6 people, and they met in this Colonel Thomas Martin's house on Christmas Eve, 1865. And it really was about political stuff. It was about, the North is coming down here, they're freaking trying to take over everything we've ever worked for and all this type of stuff. They wanted the whole economy. That's really what the war was about. I mean, when you look at what happened during the war between the states, Abe Lincoln never freed any slaves in West Virginia, Delaware, Kentucky, or states, or Maryland, states that had some slaves, which would have been easy to free, right? He didn't do that. He didn't do it till the war was almost going for 2 years, and it was only in the states that were rebelling. And if the states came back in the Union, he would protect slavery. The other thing was the first objective, one of the first objectives of the North, the Yankees, was to hit New Orleans, the port of New Orleans, because, part of it was with the South seceded, they would have control over that port plus everything coming down to Mississippi, which was another problem. It wasn't just that it was a free trade zone. Well, when the Yankees took over New Orleans, they kept slavery intact, including after when Abe Lincoln had his Emancipation Proclamation decree taken effect on January 1st, 1863. I mean, it's a big smokescreen about, what, the high and mighty cause of the North. It's BS. That's what it is. And I'm going to tell you some more things about what goes on in New York. But anyway, this old reference, you can see it's from Google. You can look this up. It's an old book. And I wasn't aware of who actually was, the founders until I looked. I remember one of the names in here is Kennedy, Captain John Kennedy. This Frank McCord, Calvin Jones, Richard Reed, John Lester, and James Crow with an E on the end of it. They were the ones, the 6 that formed this on December 24th, 1865. And they picked up the word kukleo or kukloi from the Greek word kuklos, meaning a band or circle. And they used the word Klan because they're Scotch-Irish descent. Now, me personally, I got no use for this organization, and it's like, I would see why they started it because of economic problems being pushed by the North. You know, I'm half Italian and I'm Roman Catholic, although I don't like the Pope. I think the Pope's a yo-yo. I would never even be able to go in this anyway. And I don't really buy into this racial superiority shit all the way anyways. It's kind of like Italians actually built things way before the Northern Europeans. So, the Europeans were a bunch of barbaric tribes when the Italians were ruling the world, right? The Romans. So I'm mostly Italian. But, there's also a problem, and I got to address this right now. This guy, I think this guy's name is Pastor Manning. He's the only guy I ever see put it right out there. What the hell's going on? People got to recognize, there's inequality in the United States. Partly, and I gotta say this, man. YouTube might be able to get mad at me for saying this, but I'm not making this crap up. This is reality. I mean, even when students go to Harvard or Yale or something, black students are given a 200 bonus points on their SAT score, so they get in here. So they got 1,000, to get 1,200 or whatever it is, But this is partly why, the money's in, and the Asians are smarter than the whites. They're typically a 106. Me, and I know I talk very plain working class, but I was tested a couple times at 135. I'm down here. I'm not genius or nothing, but I'm over here. I'm way the hell over here. I worked on some heavy duty stuff. I mean, can't tell you what's going on in the game. Can't tell you what's going on with bar banter talk, but when it gets into other things, I know a lot of stuff. But the deal is, the high and mighty North. This bugs me too. They're playing a game. They got to have a bogeyman. They got to have a guy down south to put all the blame on. Now, you saw that IQ distribution. Now, the IQ distribution, when you're talking about the people that are running the financial sector section of New York, the sector, they're way the hell over there. Just way smarter than me. I mean, I would be a cog in the wheel over there, okay? But, I'm pretty smart in a lot of ways, in common sense smart, too, which is not just book smart. Because I could do things. I could work on cars. I could do MacGyver stuff. I could do a lot of different things. And, to tell you the truth, I don't really have too much respect for people that are extremely smart a lot of times, because a lot of times they're eggheads. That's how I look at them. But look at New York, and look at the demographics in New York. This is why I brought up this chart. You got the yellow section there, that's all the whites, okay? Then you got the black section is the dark green. Then you got the reddish color section is the Hispanic, and you got the blue section is the Asians. New York is segregated like crazy. It's segregated to the max. It's not, this melting pot. And it's like they're playing like everything is the same and everything's equal. It's definitely not equal in New York, and it's definitely not equal not just by demographics where people live, but also financially. Now, part of that is, I think, the IQ factor. It's just what it is. It's just what the hell it is. I'm sorry, that's what the hell it is, whatever. But, I don't really necessarily think, I can tell you one thing. If you know what you're doing in your area, and you know how to frame houses, you know how to do roofs, you know how to fix cars, agriculture, you're going to make money. So a lot of it's just work, too. The guy, Pastor Manning, is right. But, I think the game that's going on here, because this attack on Forrest is not just an attack on Forrest. It's an attack on the South and all this stuff in general. It's an attack on America. But it's also a big deflection away from the biggest crooks in this nation and what's wrong with this nation. the pinnacle on the top is actually out of New York City, the financial districts in New York City. The areas that I was very much connected with before I was in the Marine Corps, too. I worked for a very, 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 very powerful Jewish family. That's in that it was a main competitor of Donald Trump. And the construction people were all, the Italian families were all involved. There's a lot of, I don't even want to go into all this stuff. Matter of fact, that's why I was pretty much always involved in the biggest heavy hitters down here in Florida. You know, even though I live in the area of Florida that's more country, I was always traveling down to where the big heavy hitters were. But when you look at that Forrest, it became how it became where he was deemed to be a founder. They got it right here in Wikipedia, man. This Wikipedia is so much BS, it's ridiculous. That he was a founder of the Ku Klux Klan, or a member of. First off, he definitely wasn't a founder. That's not there. But he was a leader or something during the period of time. Came about from a preacher who was preaching that he was many decades after this Forrest death. Forrest died in 1877, and a preacher was coming out saying in the 1900s, early 1900s, that Forrest was a leader of the Klan. And then another guy picked it up and put it in his book as a footnote. So basically, a rumor. You know, you believe her? I don't believe preachers. Preachers, I really don't believe a lot of those guys. I mean, some are good, and they got devil preachers too. I mean, there's good ones and bad ones. But you know, what was going on at that time was they were trying to make an association with Forrest to give more luster to the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. In the 1920s and the 1930s, the Ku Klux Klan was a highly respected organization in New Jersey and New York, in Yankeedom. It was. And what I think is going on, I mean, it's the same, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all. Nothing. It's the same as it's always been. It's just that, you know, they've got to play the game. And you're looking up in New York, the guys that run the places up there, they're an elite class to the max. They look down on everybody, including me. You know, it don't matter, I'm Caucasian. They're not going to, because I really don't give a crap about them up there anymore at all. But I could probably get right back in with those guys, no problem. I probably could. But I really have no desire to. Because it's sort of like, you know, I don't know what it is. It's something about it. I mean, it's one aspect I like about it, but there's another aspect I don't. But, you know, they made up this rumor started with a preacher that this guy Forrest was a leader of the early Klan. Now, this was decades after he died. Now, say, for instance, even if you want to make the assumption, which is not, there's nothing there, it's BS, it's a rumor that was picked up, that made a footnote in another book. But like I told you, the people up in New York, they gotta have a bogeyman. You know, that's what they're doing. They gotta have a bogeyman. They gotta have something to deflect away from their garbage. You look at, you know, say Forrest was in the Klan. He died in 1877. So, you know, you figure if he was in it, he was in it in the late 1860s to the early 1870s. And what was it back then? It was nothing but an organization that was fighting the Reconstruction efforts, not going against the Southern economy. Basically raping, pillaging, and plundering everything the South had for the economic benefit of the North. It wasn't racial. I mean, this was way before any racial laws came about or anything like that. It was way before that. Now, with Forrest, he had a lot of black cavalrymen, horse soldiers in his units. And if they wanted to leave, you know, first off, they voluntarily worked for the, you know, was under his command, right? But if they wanted to leave and go right to the other side, it would have been easy for them to do because they were on horseback. It wasn't like you're running away with 2 feet. You're on horseback in the middle of the night. Get on your horse, you take off, you go by. You know, you could have went right to Yankee lines right away, but nobody abandoned this guy. So he had a lot of blacks under his command too. So, you know, that's another thing. It doesn't jive in with this smear on him. Then what are they doing today? They're tearing up his grave. But you know, it burns me up more than anything. I got to tell you right this from the heart because, you know, New York, and actually, it's even the people that have been in the military in the last 50 years or so. I mean, even people that, I'd say more than, maybe the last 50 years, or 40 years. People have been in the military for the last 40 years, say since they went all volunteer with Ronnie Reagan, and the pay scale went up a lot. Nobody's got a clue what it's really like to be a volunteer in the military in sacrificing and serving your country. The Confederates, sure, they got paid. They got paid in Confederate money, which you know what that turned out to be. And the pay was sporadic. The supplies were low. I mean, the Confederates are so bad off. I mean, a lot of them weren't even wearing shoes at the end of the war. They were half-starved scarecrows. Were these people fighting for slavery? Hell no. No, not in the least. They're fighting to preserve their last bit of their freedoms from invaders coming from the north. Abe Lincoln, he was pulling in people that were right off the immigration boat. There were Germans and Irish, a lot of times that didn't even speak English, sticking them in a blue uniform and sending them down south to go fight the Southerners. Basically, it was like the immigrants fighting against the Americans. That's what it was. But you know, when people take it on the surface and they say, oh, you know, we got this is going on and that's going on, and the Civil War, the war between the states, and the war of northern aggression was just about slavery. That was it. You know, the only thing they mentioned about slavery, even on a presidential ticket, was expansion of slavery in the western states. It had nothing to do with human rights. It had to do with political power going to the South. Because if they got more states voting as a bloc in the South, they would be voting against the subsidies coming out of the federal government going to the big railroads, which Abe Lincoln was an attorney for. But you know, people want to be dumb, and I'm looking at this chart here right now. Oh well, that's the way it goes. You know, that's what I'm looking at. I got to put it to you honestly, because this guy, Pastor Manning's right. I looked at a couple of things he says, but you know, if I say it, I'm a bad guy because, you know, I'm not a black guy saying it, right? But that's what's going on. This guy, Pastor Manning, saying he's right. It's bullshit what's going on. Everything. And, you know, but part of the reason why there's inequality in the United States with wealth, it's partly because of the IQ distribution. It's right in there, man. That's just how it is. And Asians got a few points up above the Caucasians, and they do better money-wise too. Now, I'm over here, and I don't mean you got to have a lot of money that you're gonna have your IQ is up here. You're gonna have a lot. I don't have a lot of money, but my IQ is 135. I was in who's who for scholastic achievement in high school. I had a full scholarship going to college. I just about aced the freaking ASVAB test going into the Marine Corps. Recruiter was like, holy shit, what the hell did you do? He's like, never saw a score that high in my life. It's like an IQ test, too. I had an IQ test before when I was in school. Very high. But, you know, I don't like playing a game. I don't like playing kiss-ass games. So, you know, that hurts you, too. I mean, you could be down here somewhere and you kiss ass, you're going to be up there with the money. That's what it is. And it don't mean that if you have an high IQ, you're a good guy. Now, I know Bill Clinton's got a real high IQ, man. That guy, I think he's like 150 or above. I think he's a genius. And he knows how to talk, he knows how to communicate with people, he knows how to act. but he's a sellout. I don't even trust Trump, if you're getting on with these politics. But, none of these guys, nobody today lived through the kind of hardships that happened in the war between the states. And the people that were the Confederates, they hate the Confederates today because they tried to break away. That's all it was. They were trying to break away. They don't like that. They don't like independent people. Everybody today is owned one way or the other. That's that's the other part of it too. Everything you do, everything you say, everything where you go, it's all recorded. They got computers doing this crap, and they can hold it against you sometime in the future. It's ridiculous. They don't like anything independent today. This is why they really can't stand the South or the Confederate cause. That's why they can't stand it. If you look at the Confederate Constitution, there's a lot. I put a video out on that before. This goes into a lot of stuff. I know they point out, slavery was legal. Well, slavery was legal before they left. It always was legal. It was legal in the Union. And Abe Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation didn't free any slaves where he had control, only in the places where he revolted. He said why he did that, because he was trying to make a slave revolt, which didn't happen. Because slavery wasn't as extreme as Hollywood likes to make it sound. That's why there wasn't a slave revolt. But the deal is that the Confederate Constitution put term limits on the president's term. It put limits on spending by the federal government, especially for infrastructure, which was being abused by the big railroads and the canal builders. They're using tariff money that was being exploited from the South and being used up north. They put what else they do? They did something where the states had more power over people coming in and trying to take titles. Especially, I forgot exactly what was in that damn Constitution all the way. I did a video on it, and I did highlight all the points, but there was a lot of different things where the states had a lot more powers. And also, one of the things they did later on with the, the North and putting more central power was get rid of the process whereby the states appointed the senators to the U.S. Senate in Washington, D.C. There was no direct election of senators. That was the 17th Amendment that was passed later on. I think it was in 1913. But immediately after the war between the states, the North set up procedures to make it more difficult for the South to appoint senators, would put them in political gridlock, and it just screwed up their representation in the central government even more so, even after the war between the states. Now, if you even want to use a little common sense about, what was going on in the South in the 1800s, after the war between the states, all those places in the South were still under military control many, many years after they even said military control was relinquished. Look at the U.S. censuses of the 1900 and 1910. They'll still refer to military district in Georgia, military district in South Carolina, military district in Mississippi. They still refer to it. It wasn't until after World War I, and a lot of Southerners participated in World War I, that the South was really free of military occupation. Even though supposedly military occupation ended much earlier than that, it really didn't. A lot of people don't realize all this stuff. They hate this guy Forrest because he represents somebody that, he was like the George Washington of the South. Basically, that's what he was. He was the guy that almost beat the ones that were trying to hold him in the Union. Just like the American revolutionaries uh, which are not revolutionaries. You know, the ones in 1776, the colonists, they weren't trying to knock out the crown of England. They were trying to get break away from them, right? I mean, I don't know why they call it the American Revolution in 1776. Basically, it was the American separation of 1776. Basically, what was going on with the South, it was the Southern separation. That's what it was. Southern divorce, you know, the colonist divorce of 1776. Um, but basically, Nathan Bedford Forrest is the George Washington of the Confederacy. That's what he is. And they can't stand this kind of crap. They can't stand it. But people don't want to think past what it really was. They don't want to think what the war was really about. They don't want to think anywhere. They don't want to go there, man. And people that even, you know, you take these really, really smart Caucasian people, they know what's going on. But you know what? They know it financially, it's better to play the game. You know, I know it's better for me not to put this out on YouTube. I can tell you that right now. Because they're going to go, bleh. I'll be lucky if I get this one through. I mean, I don't know. But you see, that's another reason why I could have a high IQ and know a lot of stuff and work very hard and not make as much money as I potentially could because I don't play the game. I don't play the game the way I should, you know? But, you know, I hope YouTube is a little more lax than Zuckerberg's Facebook, because Facebook, I know I'm not on Facebook, but Zuckerberg, what a joke, man. I gotta tell you, though, the deal is, though, you know, even today, we can regard it as an absolute fact that Nathan Bedford Forrest definitely wasn't a founder of the Ku Klux Klan. He definitely wasn't. They're saying he was an early leader, but it was a BS story started by a preacher, and then another guy was writing the history of the South, and he threw a chapter of the Klan in there. He picked up what that preacher said as legit, and somebody else picked it up. And it's basically folklore. It's BS. It's a made-up story. And the thing is, if you're looking at the earliest first decade of the Klan, it was about stopping the Reconstruction efforts, which was crushing the economy of the South after they had this crippling war. I mean, there was people coming down from the North just trying to rip off everything that was left of the South. Most people were dead or crippled. Everything was destroyed and burnt. And you sending more people down from the North to freaking exploit everybody even more. So, I mean, that's what the original organization was about. It changed into something else later on. But if you look in the 1920s and the 1930s, the Ku Klux Klan was highly respected in the North in New Jersey and New York City. You can look in the historical papers and you'll see stuff all over the place. It's all over there. So, I mean, you know, they're playing a game right now, and it's the wealthy that's up in New York City that are playing this game. They are playing this game to the hilt. They got to direct attention away from the garbage they're doing. And they got to have a bogeyman and say, this guy is the bad guy and blah, blah, blah. And you know the deal is. It's a game. It's a scam. It's just like, you know, these filthy rich people are philanthropists. No, they're not. I know they do this at every level. I don't care if they're billionaires or they're millionaires or there's somebody that's, you know, upper middle class professional, you know, they belong to the Rotary Club or some it's a front. It's a front. And so they don't, you know, I mean, it's ridiculous, man. But, you know, the other side of it is, you know, when he's looking at racial inequality in the United States, it isn't just because there's these super, super smart, ultra wealthy white people that are doing it. Yeah, it's them. It's them. But it's also there's a definite difference in IQ distribution between the races. Definitely, it's just how it is. Now, I don't necessarily respect people that got less really smart IQ, intelligent or really intelligent and have a very high IQ, because I don't like professionals usually. I think a lot of professionals like doctors, attorneys, and I don't know, CPAs and all that. They're freaking. I mean, you got to have that garbage because the system, the matrix system that's been created around us. But for the most part, the most intelligent people know home remedies and how to do things hands-on. That's the kind of intelligence you really need. You know, but when people start realizing that they're being scammed and races are being used against each other for the benefit of the high and mighty crowd in Upper Manhattan, well, then you'll figure it out. But that's the game. That's why they hate Forrest. Forrest, it serves several purposes. Nobody fights our power. They're always evil, Anybody tries to break away from us, they're the bad guy. We gotta have a bogeyman, kind of divert attention away from us, This guy Forrest, he lived 150 years ago. He died like almost 150 years ago, right? I mean, what's the point of digging up his grave anyway? What good does that do when you're moving a monument and all this? What good is that doing anyway? What is that absolutely doing? Nothing, right? It's showing we're special. We care, right? And that's what it's showing? Yeah, bullshit. It doesn't do anything, man. It's a big scam. It's sort of like the game the philanthropists play, Oh, that charitable contribution, philanthropy garbage. Um, the things they put the money into that supposedly they don't have personal control of, they got personal control of. It's a big scam. Everything's a scam coming out of New York. Can't stand that place, to tell you the truth. But anyway, I don't know. I gotta put this out, and I gotta tell you, this, I don't know what the hell the solution is for all the damn world's problems. You know what I mean? But I can tell you one thing: this guy Forrest, they're playing a game and they're lying about him because it's protecting the money interest up north. That's really what it is in a nutshell. They gotta have this bogeyman. It's a guy that lived 150 years ago, right? A cavalry officer lived 150 years ago that the Yankees are afraid of. I mean, some preacher makes up some story that he was a leader of the Klan or some bullshit, and that becomes gospel. They were trying to get more prestige for that organization through Forrest's reputation. There's absolutely no evidence to show that this guy was even in it involved. Period. None. None. Zero. I mean, somebody wants to make up a story and then use up that as a reference and put it in a book. That's what they got. They got a little bit of hearsay bullshit. They don't have anything else, period. But if you want to look at the games that are going on, especially in the medical system, Planned Parenthood, abortion system, I can tell you right now, the evil is all coming out of New York, and it's the big money guys. And usually the guys with the most IQ and the most money at the same time. They got a scam going, man. So I got to put this out a little bit different way, and YouTube's definitely going to be reviewing this video, but I don't know, man. I mean, what the hell can I tell you, man? I mean, I got to mention some of the most politically incorrect stuff here once in a while, and if I don't mention it, and people gonna not, and that's the problem. I mean, once people get in their head that this is the way it is and that's the way it is and all this kind of crap, you're not fighting the right battle. That's the problem. This guy, this is irrelevant. Whatever this guy was, it's almost irrelevant. Even if the guy was in the Klan, it's irrelevant today. You're talking about the first 10 years of the Klan, which was against the economic raping of the South. That's what it was about. It wasn't even racial. The crap turned racial later on. And it was very popular in the North, in New York City and New Jersey, in the 20s and 1920s and 1930s. Over 50, 60 years after this guy died. And that's when they started making up the big, wonderful stories that, oh, yeah, he was part of us. Try to give prestige to their organization. That's how this all crap. It's a folklore. It's garbage. Total garbage. And I think it's important that, you know, because if you disrespect this guy, I got no respect for any veterans that have been in the military for the last 40 years. I got none. If you disrespect this guy, I got no respect for anybody that's been in since 1980, at least. And if you even go back further than that, no veterans even in the last 100 years went through the crap this guy had to go through to fight for his native Tennessee. None of them did. So if you disrespect him, I disrespect all veterans. Because no veterans today are alive that were around during his time. None. So that's how I look at it. And, that's a very important point. Because honor belongs with the honorable. And Nathan Bedford Forrest was an honorable man. Kick-ass honorable man that they're scared of. He's a very honorable man, doing his duty for his native Tennessee. So anyway, over and out.